Hi everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Tax Tips channel. My name is Cherry Chen, a chartered professional accountant located in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. And I'm on a mission to become the Google map for hardworking Canadians seeking financial freedom. And today I have a very special guest, Kevin Costain.
Costain, yeah, close. Very good. Very good.
Kevin Costain from Solo. And what is Solo? I know you want to know, and I want to know too. But before I get to that, if you like our channel, make sure that you give us a thumbs up to our channel. If you like this episode, which I think is super interesting, you should also hit the subscribe button, and then you can stay on the latest tax tip. Now, with that, hi Kevin, welcome.
Well, hi. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I know this is a very last minute type of interview invite,
Hey,
and I
all
appreciate
good. I like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about Solo. What does Solo stand for?
Yes, right. SOLO stands for Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario. And we're, you can say just Solo is fine, but we're a advocacy group for small landlords. So we do anything from fight for justice with the government. We go and help landlords directly. We take phone calls from landlords. We provide educational information. We do a ton of work. Anything that we can do to support small landlords in the environment of Ontario is really what we do. And we even actually go physically out to evictions. So we do anything that can help our landlords.
This is a very interesting topic because in my other identity, I have a secret identity. My secret identity is being CFO of nonprofit organization. So when I met Kevin, and you run this nonprofit organization, and trust me, nonprofit organizations are struggling these days, and they have a lot of mandate that our government have not been listening to. So I felt like my two world kind of crossovers, and I felt like I need to promote your cause and then share my insight about advocacy as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well,
now,
appreciate it.
What got you started with Solo? You're now the chairman of the board of directors on Solo. It's a volunteer position. For those of you who don't know, if you're sitting on the board for a nonprofit organization, majority of them are volunteer position. For someone who are willing to dedicate a time and commitment to become a board member of the Small Ownership Landlord of Ontario, it's almost like a full-time job at times.
Oh, well, it's more than almost. It is a full-time job all the time.
Yes. So what got you into joining the board and helping out all these people?
Well, my story is of being a landlord, somewhat of a reluctant landlord, and then things kind of went wrong, and I had a lot of problems with my tenant. We might discuss that a little more, but the idea was that I needed help, and so I went to Solo. I called their phone number, which is available on the website, and I asked for help. And the nice thing is that there was somebody that answered the phone, a real person. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't ask for any money. And then they kind of set me right, set me straight. Do this, and they really helped me. That was board member Varun at the time. And so what ended up happening with all this assistance and help that they gave me, I really wanted to give back.
So what happened?
Yeah.
What happened? What got you into calling them the first place?
Well, what happened is my tenant spent about a year and a half terrorizing me, and it culminated in burning my house down.
Oh my God.
He really just did all kinds of different things, from destruction to threats to all sorts of other problems. There was a huge car fire that happened in the driveway. There was
in your driveway.
In my driveway.
And then that was your car.
That was his car that burned down, and then
he burned his own car down.
And it destroyed the front of my house at the time. So all of these sort of things all culminated in destruction of the house, which ended up he had to leave the house. And it's just it was a complete struggle with a tenant who was terrorizing me, but also at the same time the bureaucratic struggles, because going through the LTB, Landlord and Tenant Board, bureaucracy was very difficult, and I reached out to government officials, and they were somewhat supportive, but it was very difficult to, they were kind of patting me on the back and saying, okay, here, it's all right. And yet I'm being threatened to have my house destroyed, and my tenant's saying he's going to get even with me. Ultimately, he burned the house down. But so that environment really was very difficult, and I kind of had nowhere to turn. Anywhere I turned, any sort of association I looked at, they wanted money. You know, the thing is that Solo, we never ask for anything from our landlords. We help them the best we can, but we don't provide legal advice because we're not paralegals or lawyers. But the point is, we help them in any way possible, and we don't ask for anything in return. We try to help fix the problem. You know, so that's what led me to them, and ultimately fighting my fight, and they really assisted greatly. And it led to just more involvement, more work with them, starting off really small and then a little bit more. And then I asked, okay, well, I want to get really involved. Can I join the board? And thankfully they said yes. And the rest is, I guess, history.
I think there's a lot of interviews and news stories right now targeting both sides of the spectrum. And they are showing the extreme cases, majority of the time, right?
Yep.
There's like really bad landlords and there's really bad tenants at the same time. And the residential rental system in Ontario is governed by the Landlord Tenant Board. And essentially that's also managed by the Ontario government. How do you leverage this rule to essentially balance the playing field?
Right, well, there's a lot there, right?
Yeah.
Balancing it is somewhat difficult sometimes because we deal with landlords in crisis.
Yeah.
All of our attention is landlords coming into us with crisis situations.
Yes.
And so often it's hard to see that other perspective, right? Because we're not getting calls from tenants to say we have problems with. So granted, it can be difficult sometimes, but you know, one of the things that balances a lot of this out for me is that for most of my life I was a tenant, and I think for a lot of people they can say that. And I mean, we know what it's like to be a tenant, and we know what it's like to have our rights violated. We know what it's like to have people doing bad things and bad landlords. They're out there. And we don't want bad landlords. We don't want them as part of our organization, but we also try to educate landlords to be better and to follow the rules, like you say. You know, a lot of times I discuss this with landlords that are kind of in very difficult positions, and there's tension or there's arguments or fighting between them and the tenant. A lot of times I discuss this with them and I say, you know, you want to follow the rules because it protects you. You know, you want to, as difficult as it is, and even in my case where this tenant is destroying my house, and I'm still paying for water and I'm still paying for electricity that he refuses to pay as part of his contract.
The full year.
For the full year.
Yeah.
And yes, it's very difficult because it seems very absurd.
Yes.
But by following those rules, I am protecting myself. And that's what's important sometimes. Sometimes you just got to do the best you can to protect yourself in the environment that you're in.
What I cannot reconcile, let me just put it that way, I think this is an opinion thing on my part, is that our government has painted landlord as particularly for some reason, small scale landlords in general, as evil people. They refuse to take responsibility for the action that the government has taken, but instead blame it on the small scale landlords or landlords in general, that they are the bad guys. But in reality, they are the true party that should be taking on the responsibility of why there is a housing crisis, why there is no foresight to build all the infrastructure or cutting all these red tape to provide housing, but instead blame it all on one problem, like one small piece of the puzzle. And that is the part that I'm having trouble reconciling with. And so tell me a little bit about what Solo does to have the landlord right heard.
One of the things is that at Solo we try to do is, especially through media, through all the different appearances, we try to humanize landlords, because I think one of the challenges, and you know, certainly it's a matter of opinion, but a lot of the public opinion about landlords is that they're often not even human.
Yeah.
And we want to humanize these people. You know, I'm a person.
Yeah.
I rented out my house.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not an evil person.
Yeah.
We're just doing the best we can, most of us. And small landlords in particular, they don't have mountains of cash to handle any kind of hiccup.
Yeah.
You know, I would have been completely ruined if not for insurance.
Yeah.
So the idea is just to try to humanize small landlords. And, you know, let's face it, the government has a role to play, all different levels of government. We also, as small landlords, have a role to play. Larger landlords have a role to play.
Yep.
That's not in our purview, but that's still these corporate landlords have. So we all really ought to work together, I think, at some level. and take on our responsibilities as we can. We want a healthy rental market. That's really at the end of the day, landlords are in the business of renting a property and then earning money for that rental, and they want to keep their good tenant.
Yeah.
They want to continue earning the money.
Yeah.
To pay for bills, to pay for mortgage, to pay for property tax. So at the end of the day, we want a healthy environment, and we have a role to play in that, just like anybody else. But if we can't be seen as human, we can't be seen as good guys, we can't be seen as part of the solution, then that's a problem. It's a problem on a lot of levels, either from the tenant groups, from tenants themselves, from government officials, from any direction.
Yeah.
You know, it starts with just looking like we're human.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's how my two worlds collide with each other, my secret identity and my real estate tax accountant identity. Like through my learning from my other identity that works with nonprofit organizations, I get to learn about this term called advocacy, which I've never learned about before. Excuse my ignorance. Realistically, advocacy, I've heard about it from a lot of executive directors that I talk to. They essentially the purpose of forming a nonprofit or associations is group together a group of public interest and then fight for that cause as well. So then people know that we exist. People also know that the government also get to know about us and how the policy could potentially affect us. So going from that altogether, how does Solo do to voice our small scale landlord?
Yeah, we do it in so many different ways. It's gotten pretty diverse now, but the core of what we do now is the lobbying and directly interacting with the government and building relationships.
Yep.
But we also part and parcel to advocating for small landlords is to do media appearances.
Yep.
And we've been in every media outlet there is, from Prime Asia to CBC. So that's that sort of outreach is an important part of it all. Advocating for our landlords is often like going and being a part of their challenges and helping them that way directly, talking them down from problems.
Yeah.
Advocating for landlords is by building collaborative relationships with tenant groups.
Yeah.
We've actually released joint statements with the tenant groups.
So
we've tried to collaborate with tenant groups even though we disagree fundamentally on a lot of things. So advocating for landlords is just really driving at so many different telling stories, of course I tell my own story and writing a book from Rent to Ruin, but also telling on the blog, telling stories of other landlords, anything from fraud charges to damage to other challenges that our landlords are facing. So we really try to, put those stories out to humanize the landlords even more. And so that, advocating for small landlords is almost like how can you at every turn, help them, protect them, fight for their rights. And even at times we've gone out and protested.
Yeah.
In front of when the mayoral race was happening in Toronto, we protested in front of Olivia Chow's office. We go out and get out there when we need to. We just really do everything we can to back up small landlords in every level.
That's very admirable.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I heard that you also take some MPL for breakfast.
Yes, well, we did Solo Day at Queen's Park. We kind of coined it Solo Day at Queen's Park, but in last November, we actually, for the first time, we went to Queen's Park to do a breakfast gathering and invited all the MPPs from there that were working that day. It was actually, coincidentally, it was a problematic day because Trump was talking about tariffs, and so people were scrambling and the ministers were meeting, so we didn't get Doug Ford out, but we got a bunch of MPPs, and we were there just talking to a bunch of staffers and MPPs and different folks that just kept coming by and having a coffee, and they all stopped to talk to us, and we had our board members and a few volunteers at the event, and we'll do more of that. We really want to build relationships with the MPPs so they can come to us. We have several, hundreds of constituents in different areas, and these MPPs have a stake in directly talking to their constituents through us as well. So there's a lot of good things that can come along, but we're obviously pushing for change, and that's what we're after.
Absolutely. So Thank you. And I
No
wanted
problem.
to say thank you. I mean, I'm a landlord too, so thank you for doing what you do. So if I want to be part of this movement, how do we help? How do we even get help? Like for those of you who are having trouble collecting rent, how do they even find you guys? And if they want to, because let's face it, to have an operation, it's not easy. It is a volunteer operation, but they also need financial support. And I'm sure, I'm assuming, I'm taking a huge assumption because I'm the CFO, and I see it costs money to run campaign. It costs money to hire advocacy firm to do the campaign for you. So how do average landlords like Erwin and I would be able to support you?
Right. So it all starts from our website, perhaps. Go to solo.ca, SOLO.ca.
Yep.
Start there. The phone number is prominent, so you can certainly call us, especially if you're interested in helping out. There is a link to donate, so you can certainly donate to us. It helps keep the lights on, so that's really fundamentally useful. You can join us as a member if you're a landlord. Members.solo.ca. And that's wonderful. We're looking for more members to become involved, or if you have any challenges, you can describe them to us. And we just sort of preach the idea of start the communication. Right? You don't have to unload everything on us right from the start. There's no pressure. You can just simply go to our website, solo.ca, find our number, call us, and then we can just start a dialogue and understand what. Maybe you just want to tell your story. Maybe you're looking for help or guidance, or maybe you're looking for a paralegal. We can direct you to a paralegal. Maybe you're looking for, something. You know what I mean? And then we can go from there, and then we can discuss whether you want to be part of the community or further that, right?
Amazing. So thank you so much for your time, Kevin.
No
This
problem.
has been amazing. I always admire people like sacrificing and committing their own time for a bigger cause that's bigger than just personal interest. So I am really thankful for what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me here. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, for those of you who want to be part of this, make sure that you visit solo.ca, right?
Right.
Solo.ca.